You have your opinion. The problem is you think it's reality. Not my field of expertise here tonight, so I'm going way out on a limb. There she
What's up,
is.
Chris?
How you doing?
I'm good. How about you?
Well, good. I'm great, I guess. Now that you're here, I'm fabulous.
Glad I have
That's the
that.
way it is. You do. You do. So how are your puppies doing?
They're good. I've got two young dogs that I'm training now. A 5-month-old
In
puppy.
this in the swamp of sadness.
Yes, that's where I live now. So I don't know. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's good. How old are they now?
I have a 5-month-old male out of my last breeding, and then I have a 2-year-old out of an out-of-house breeding that I did previously.
Those puppies are 5 months old now?
Yeah, right. Time flies.
Fuck. Yeah, I'm getting old, huh?
Yeah,
Er?
they're huge.
Yeah.
I'm like, what happened to
Yeah,
my
yeah.
babies?
Yeah, no, I got kids. So, oh yeah, and that's the other thing I want to warn everybody. I'm home alone with my two teenage boys, so a fight may break out at any time. We will correctly and appropriately deal with it if it happens. I don't think it will, but teenagers, what can I say? So, yeah. So, do you want to give me a little bit of background and what we're talking about tonight? Can you tell all the tens of people that are watching?
Tens. Yes. So I started working in detection professionally in 2010. I worked on a contract with the Marine Corps. Um,
Hmm.
I've been doing detection since then. The vast majority of the dogs that I train are explosive dogs. I may get a couple of narcotics dogs every year, just small contracts, but most of what I do is explosives. Um, Most of that now is on leash. Um,
Hmm.
Previously, it was all off leash.
Hmm.
Over that time, I spent a good bit of time at Tar Heel. I worked for Jerry for a while, so I got to give credit where credit is due. I learned some of my detection stuff there.
Very
Um,
good.
I've trained with Dick Stahl, Bart Ballon, Justin Rigney. They've really touched me in detection. And it's just, I mean, for me, it's constant learning and experimentation. Um,
Mm.
so I'm at a point now where I have kind of my own system that I've
Mm.
blended together everything that I've used,
Yep.
and it seems to work.
Okay,
It,
cool. Can, can I ask you what you think of Randy Hare?
so I've not trained with Randy Hare personally.
Yeah,
I would actually really like to go to one of his seminars at some point.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
he's very talented.
Mm.
He obviously knows what he's doing.
Oh,
He's
there you go.
definitely one of the people I would like to study with.
Yeah.
So, that's what I can say on him.
Yeah, well, it's funny when I watched when I was the head trainer for the police department, I got the DVDs that he had out, and you can only get them,
Mm,
or back then you could only get them if you were a cop. So,
right.
because he was pretty particular about that stuff. But I watched those, and every other detection, drug detection or narcotics detection video that I ever watched, I was like, just falling asleep. You know what I mean? Because there
Yeah.
was these guys going like, find it, find it, find it, find it, find it, and they're doing all the work, right?
Right.
And then I watched the Randy Hare videos, and I swear to God, I was like, let the dog work. You know what I mean? Like, let the dog do the job.
Yes. And that's a big problem that I see generally is people don't trust the dogs. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you can't smell shit. You probably need to stop.
Yeah.
Um, Now, with that said, for most of my dogs have to go through the most tedious and hardest certification I've ever had to train a dog for. So, in the early stages of training, those dogs, it is very much, I need you to follow me. This is the
Yeah.
pattern I want you to
Yeah.
work. This is how we detail that. And then as they learn pattern, I step off. I get out of the way. Once they learn
Sure.
through aid placement and through holding them accountable to presentations that this is exactly how I want you to run this, then you back off and you let them work on their own. An important distinction, I think, is that a lot of times in this industry, depending on your contract and your certification, there are things that I have to do in training that are not operational at all. And that's
Can we talk about that?
yeah. So
Okay.
for example, operationally with explosives, I really want the dog to be as far away from me as possible. So I tell
Yeah.
my handlers, like when they get downrange, we then have trainers downrange, start putting your dog in a long line. I want you to be further away. Like the dog knows pattern at this point. It's not a test. He's not looking for 10 grams of something. Like he knows his pattern. This is how you got to teach him the ECP, all that kind of stuff. But in the test, when the evaluators are, and they know that it's not an operational test. It is not a test of what the dog knows. It's not a test of whether or not they know odor. It is a test of a handler dog team, and it's trying to push the team to the limits. So for the test, I do a lot more detailing. I want the handler in the picture and to hold the dog accountable, because when you're on a timed test, you have obviously a certain amount of time to hit all those productive areas. Be in the picture and show the dog the way. My personal experience is that if you train the dog to understand that over detailing is not a problem, that it's not a cue, then it's not an issue.
Right.
So, and that's the biggest thing I deal with is I train the dogs for a certification. They go downrange, they're made operational downrange, then they come back to me. Now I have to swing them the other way and get them ready for certification again. Then they go back out. So.
Well, that's a lot of the problem, I think, with at least local law enforcement here, is that they're only playing for the USPCA certification. That's all they want. And then they don't go back and do the real life stuff. It's always about certifications every year. It's always about the non-actual reality. It's just so disturbing to me because, one of the things that we were doing, the guy that was a handler for the department I was on was the chief, and he wanted to add it to his resume, and he was, a great student. He was awesome. And we were doing the box search, right? And so they had a hot box, and then they had the box the guy was in. And so he knew what to do, and we had trained the dog to call back to him and then just sit by his side. And so the guy came out of the box, and everybody was screaming, grab the dog, grab the dog. And I'm like, why? And they're like, you can't control him. I'm like, look at the dog. And the guy's got a sleeve on, right? And they're freaking out. They're like absolutely freaking out. And I go, listen, the dog's not going, hook up the dog. So obviously they taught the dog to find the guy and destroy him, not obey them. And so afterwards we all went out to dinner, and there's 100 cops, and I'm trying to have this conversation, and they're looking at me like I'm wearing no pants. They're just like, what in the fuck planet are you from, dude?
I know
it's very difficult.
Yep. Yeah. It's an interesting industry to me. Listen,
wait. Because you said it's an industry. You're very politically correct.
Well, so at this point, what I tell people is that I really think that the military and law enforcement canine industries have a lot to learn from sport dog trainers and pet dog trainers. Yeah. Those are the people that really understand the science of training. They understand successive approximation. They understand free shaping. They understand behavior. They understand how to shape a dog into a final product. And that can be really lacking in this industry. Like, there's a little bit wrong with a dog who are like, oh my God, wash him out. I'm like, or hold on, why don't we teach him? We'll do that. Yeah. And then like the dog will be fine. And one of the biggest fights I get is when I talk about existential training, like especially when I start odor. So all of my personal dogs and the dogs that I've sold to departments on my own name, they start doing odor work for food. It's the only way they get to eat is to find odor.
It's like arson detection, right? It's the same thing, right? They're these dogs that do accelerant detection and stuff. They literally eat like
Right.
one piece at a time.
Yes. So you get a ton of reps while saving a lot of stamina in the dog, and you're working them in a drive where they're very clear-headed. They're really able to take in and process what it is that you're teaching them. And like when I start talking about this, people look at me like I have 3 heads. They're like, but why would I use food when he likes the Kong? And I'm like, okay, because I want to get more reps in. I want the dog to be able to think. Your dog doesn't even have an out. Half your session is you choking this dog off, and then you got nothing to work with. The dog is gassed. Like,
I fucking love you. All right,
and I'm
go ahead.
like, the other thing is, I'll be like, well, yeah, they've got, you know, good toy drive, but you know what else is a great motivator? Starvation. Hunger is a motivator. So like,
I personally don't know what that's like, but I do understand what you mean.
So it's that's the conversation I probably have most frequently right now is like, well, you know, just trying to get people to even think about it, you know, is a battle.
Well, you've got, you know, I've had this, you know, you saw the debacle I had a couple of Facebook Lives ago where, you know, I have Marine contracts and I train with police canine and military canine. And I want to say, I'm sorry. I want to say, I'm sorry you have to do that because they're handlers, not trainers. And they want, a lot of the police officers that I've trained in the beginning look at the dog like they look at a radio or a car. Like, it's not working, hit it harder. Like, it's not, like, it's crazy. And so when someone tells me, when someone tells me that they're based in military work, that's where they got their foundation, I almost go, oh shit, because it's a lot of work. It's the Yoda stuff. You must unlearn what you have learned. Yeah,
well, but the flip side to that is that when you get handlers in that want to learn, it can be an incredibly invigorating experience.
It absolutely is. Yeah.
Yeah. I love teaching handlers. It's one of my favorite things. Now, not all of them are great students, but that's part of being a teacher, right? Is you got to figure out how to reach everybody. I
don't know about that. Well, I don't know about that.
Then we can disagree on that one, because.
Well, let's talk about it for a second.
So for me, I think you have a responsibility to your students. So, for example, when I start talking to guys about the quadrants of operant conditioning.
Oh, here we go.
So I have one basic way of explaining it that 90% of people understand. But then there's always those 1 or 2 guys that are just like, what? I don't get it. And so instead of just trying to like talk at them with the exact same way I've already explained it, now as a teacher, it's my job to kind of figure out like, all right, so what is this guy into? What can what in his life can I compare to this operant condition to help him understand what I'm trying to get him to understand? And to me, I find that interesting, because then when I do figure out how to get them to understand it, it's like those light bulb moments. It's the same in dog training. When that light bulb goes on, you're like, yes.
Yeah. But I will tell you from my experience, and there's a lot of people I don't want to come visit me. You are not one of those people. I would love to have you come and visit and watch. You know, I'm about to make a video of these 2 Australian Shepherds, and they've never had a leash and a collar on. 5 years old, brothers, you know, and the people are like, there are babies. And I'm going like, okay, they're jumping on the school bus and nipping all the kids on the school bus. And they're like, that's okay. Okay, not my job. You need a psychotherapist and a Xanax salt lick. That's not, do you understand what I mean? Not everyone is teachable. Not every person is teachable.
That's true.
I respect what you're saying, and believe me, no one tries harder than me to get a point across. I mean, you've got to have picked up on that. But there's a time where I've learned in my old age to go pull the chute and just float to safety, because I think it's difference between commercial and, well, it's different kinds of commercial, but yeah.
Yeah, and I spent a short amount of time doing some pet stuff, and by the end of it, that was one lesson that I learned is like sometimes you got to say no to the crazy. You just got to walk away. Whereas that's one nice thing in this industry is, I mean, I can have a terrible handler come in that has a terrible attitude, and I can get into them in a different way than I can because
Sure.
I'm not working for them.
Yep.
I work for the company that is paying your paycheck, and
Right.
the reality is if you don't get through the certification, you don't get to go downrange. You don't get to make a bunch of money. So I need you to shut up and listen to what I'm telling you. And this
Well, you
is,
kind of have a captive audience.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't. I have bougie people who got a Norwegian elk hound because it matches the fur on my parka, and
like,
it keeps shitting in my living room.
has somebody really said that to you?
Oh, hon, come up and see, please. I'm 26 years old. Look what it's done to me. It's it's so difficult. It's so difficult. You know, it's just looking, stress, fatigue, exit. Well, I don't, John Nardowski, I don't think she means actual starvation. I think she means working for food.
Yeah.
But it's the, no one's withholding food. They're just saying, if you want the food, you have to do the job first. They do it at SeaWorld every day.
Yeah.
So,
Verbally, but it is the
yeah.
idea that if you want to eat, you have to work.
Well, so does a dog in the wild. A dog that wants to eat has to hunt.
Yeah. So then when I started talking about this with detection trainings people, I'm like, the dog literally is hunting for the odor to get his food.
Ta-da!
What is that like? So, and I'll be honest, like I've been doing it this way for years.
Yeah.
I've like it's like that good saying, a healthy dog won't starve itself.
Right.
You know, it's not you don't start by saying like I'm not going to feed the dog for a week. No, it's just you don't get out of a bowl. Like you have to work for your food. And like even with my personal dogs, if I'm super busy one day, so my puppy does not eat out of a bowl. If I'm super busy one day and I don't have time, I come home to work him, and it may be that I look for one repetition of a behavior in free shaping, click, and give him his whole meal.
Yep.
Variable reinforcement schedule. The dog still work for his meal, and the next time I get him out to work, he's like, when he starts, he's going to be like, I could get everything, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't always
Absolutely.
have just one piece of food.
Listen, I've done, I mean, I don't, again, I told you this isn't my wheelhouse. I've done it, but it's not, I'm not a professional like you are in this aspect. So I defer to you. So please feel free to rip me apart anytime you want, because no, I'm serious, because I want to learn. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I do tracking, I do, step, piece of hot dog, little tiny piece, step, piece of hot dog, blah, blah. But then by a couple weeks in, I put like some kind of source reward at the end. Maybe the rest of the food, maybe a chicken leg quarter, maybe a toy. But the dog becomes highly motivated. If the dog was fat and full, look, if my wife says go out and mow the lawn and I'll make you a calzone, I'm a mowing motherfucker. But if my wife says you go out there and mow that lawn, but first have 2 calzones, I ain't mowing the lawn.
Right.
There's no way. I'm taking a nap.
Go to sleep now.
Yeah, I got a food coma going. I'm not going out there.
So, and then the other one big thing that I feel needs to be talked about more in detection training is what I call handler proofing. It's a little bit what
here we go.
Talked about in message about cueing dogs. For years it was like don't stop moving your feet, and like I still get handlers that do like the constant foot shuffle, and I'm like, can you stop? I just like, because the only time you ever do that is when the dog is in odor, so it's already a cue. The other thing I see is that as soon as a dog shows a change of behavior, they'll like reach for their collar super fast and freeze. I'm like, what are you doing? I like, the only variable should be the odor. That's the only thing that should be variable. That's the only thing that matters to the dog. Your handling should be consistent. Whether that be off leash certain rooms and I just stand in the doorway, whether it's on a 6-foot leash and I let the dog do an independent search, whether it's me in front of the dog over detailing everything, whether it's, you know, a mixture of those factors. But what I teach guys is that you got to let your dog make decisions on his own. They're also going to show changes of behavior when things are not the target odor. It's just something that catches their nose. They want to investigate it further. Well, now if you react in a way that you've taught the dog as a cue, you will create a false response.
Right. Well, you're teaching them. So just for the people who aren't as Stephen Hawking with dogs as you are, what you're saying is they'll start to indicate on odors that aren't drugs and look for the reward.
Right. So I call it forcing the pay. Dogs that get confused, I mean, there's a lot of reasons that dogs will sit. It can be out of confusion, which doesn't look anything like an actual alert. Falses tend to not look like actual. But if you have a dog that has not been correctly handler proofed, and I now throw that dog into a testing situation where I have high levels of distractors that are associated odors. One of the big things that I see with a lot of dogs that are trained is the Egyptian bags, the canvas bags that you keep bulk odor in. If I go get 10 or 15 of those and I put them in a box, a lot of dogs are going to show a change of behavior, and they're going to spend a moment investigating because that odor is tied with the explosives that they've been searching for. So they naturally need a minute to be like, okay, this is familiar, but it doesn't have these other, okay, not it. And they'll keep moving.
So what you're saying is we used to find the same thing back in the Stone Age with latex gloves, that people would use the same latex glove.
It still happens.
And we had the best dogs at finding fucking latex gloves you ever saw in your life. And I'm like, stop! They don't understand that what you're saying is the odor is, it's the only follow line. It's the only constant that has to be there. It's the only constant. And people just don't understand that, because most of the people that do, I mean, you're starting to see some pet dog people do scent work in sport. Yeah, nose detection stuff. But mostly it's people who, in my experience, police give orders, they don't take them. And my experience is, I'm not a cop. I don't look like a cop. I don't act like a cop. And they're like, what the fuck does this guy know? And so I go, excuse me while I get my dog, and you hide that shit anywhere you want.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, they never do high hides. They never hide anything up. Never. So if you're a drug dealer in New England, put your shit in the ceiling, because they'll never find it.
So I think that people fall into a habit of maintenance training, which for me, there's no such thing as maintenance training.
No.
If I'm setting problems out all the time that are the same level of difficulty, trainers do it all the time. They fall into a pattern. You'll be like, man, well, no wonder the dog is bored. It's always 2 hides on 10 vehicles. Like, that's boring. I mean, and you can, when you start pushing the dogs and adding new variables, making things more difficult, doing fewer hides or more hides, like, I mean, I've watched dogs where the dogs start counting. They hit that hide and they just stop searching. And I'm like, do you not see that you're building this problem in?
No, they don't see it.
I tend to be like, I am very analytical and I'm very detail oriented. So
that's hard to believe.
I take notes on everything. I mean, I have, honestly, Tupperware like things, bins full of composition notebooks of every training session I've had with a dog since I was 21. Like,
that's awesome. See, now I like that, because I used to keep training journals like all the time, right? And then every once in a while, when my head gets really big and I go out and I compete, or I go out and do something and I just go, what the fuck just happened? I go back to those training journals and I'm like, oh, there's the answer right there.
Right. So I tend to be that person, and I probably piss a lot of people off like this, but
go ahead.
When I'm training dogs and I'm picking apart a truck full of dogs and, you know, setting things up to address certain issues or whatever, I'm literally like, tick, 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 tick. Like, I'm just picking apart the training to find the weak part so that I can address
right.
Right. So for me, I believe very strongly that especially in detection. When there's issues, I'm going to address it head on and just fix it. So a good example of this is that when I'm in control of a truck of dogs and I kind of get to do what I want with them, by week 2, I'm already putting them in the position where I know that I'm going to make the dogs want to false. Get over it. We will start it now so it's not an issue, and then we will continue along the way. And it generally takes 2 to 3 sessions. So 1 to 2 days max with a full truck of dogs. And by truck of dogs, I'm talking about 20 to 30 dogs.
Cut it out.
So you already work out the falsing. They've
Right.
already learned that, and I do it typically on an odor wall with very close presentations. They already learn in week 2 that over detailing is not a cue that you're correct.
Right.
It's something you have to work. And if you sit like, that's cool, you're wrong, I'll wait for you to process. Then once you keep moving, we'll keep going. By the time I hand a dog over to a handler, the dog should be able to pass certification, like already. I don't want the handler having to train the dog, because I now have to train the handler for the certification. But that dog should be handler proofed. I think that I should be able to present the same object or the same, like, most of the certifications I do, there's a can, paint cans are used for part of the testing. So I will work dogs to the point where I will present the same distractor 15, 20 times in a row. Every time I present it, you have to sniff it, because that's the deal. If I make a presentation, you have to sniff it. Because I'm retarded does not mean that it's hot. Like, and that's basically, I tell people, I'm like, I basically want the dogs to be like, this chick, God, she doesn't fucking know anything.
Right.
I want, like, it's on you. Like, the dog needs to know that this bitch can't smell anything.
That's right. That's right.
So
It's it's funny. We were doing years and years ago. We used to do cell extractions, right? And they I don't know, people up here don't really do them anymore because they know, like, a police officer with a gun isn't going to shoot them in their cell.
Right.
They're just not gonna. But they'll send the dog, and so they'll go, all right, I'll give up, right? So then we got into this prison had bloodhounds. And I learned really cool. I was like, oh, I love bloodhounds. I didn't love bloodhounds after we were done. That when I was running, and I'm, just running flat out. And they're like, oh, why don't you put on a bite suit? Why don't you put on a bite suit? And I'm like, no. They're bloodhounds. What are they gonna do, right? So there, I hear this, do, and they just find me because I'm fat and slow. And they just start biting the shit out of me, just like, gah, like trying to get me to run again. And the cops thought that was a fucking riot. Like, just thought that was the greatest thing in the world. So I said, I'm going to do the next track, and I'm going to take a sleeve with me. But I didn't use the sleeve to protect myself. I put the sleeve up a tree, and then I just kept going. They stopped at the sleeve and bayed because they were looking for the odor of that bite suit. They were looking for the odor of the equipment. They weren't looking. So if you're paying attention, if you're a good criminal, you're paying attention and you watch them training dogs, we've done it in building searches where the dog will indicate at the door of a classroom in a school where the sleeve or the bite equipment is, not where the guy is.
Right.
And that's something that you've got to get out of the way. And a lot of guys have that false positive because they're always wearing equipment. They don't understand that you've got to eliminate the equipment. You've got to get rid of it. You've got to make the dog's mind discount it.
Well, it's the same thing. It's coming back to associated odors. So even for something like that, it would be very easy to, in your early stages, once the dog understands the exercise, start setting it up where you have a couple rooms that have sleeves or bite suits in it, and then you still have a person in a bite suit, that they can still work with, because then the dog starts to realize that the only difference is the human odor. It's the same way with any detection training you're doing, whatever carrier system you're using, every associated odor. If you use paper towels as barriers in rooms and vehicles, better be proofing off those. Nitrile gloves, the Egyptian bag, like, if whatever carrier system you use, you have to proof off of that. Right. So, like, don't just buy one stash box, buy 3 of them. 2 of them should be blank. Like, You know, like it's little things that, and depending on the certification that you're going through, and what the final goal is for the dog, some of the stuff doesn't matter. For the certification that my dogs go through, it absolutely matters. There's a lot of factors, and it's set up in a way, I mean, it's kind of the same thing that you see in the sport world where like it's kind of a dick swinging contest. It's the same way between the evaluators and the trainers. Like, you know, the evaluators want their test to be harder than the dogs can pass. And it turns into this like contest, you know? Yep. So, but it's amazing to me, like once you teach the dog how to really think and how to process on their own, that, I mean, you can make really nice dogs, and you can even have a bad handler and hand them this dog and they will still go for certification. But
you're training as a bad handler to make the dog better. And people don't realize that, right? So let me talk to you a little bit about environmental. Okay, so away from scent work, you still have environmental to cope with. In everything you do, obedience, anything, you have to deal with environmental. Now, the dogs that came over here, I won't say the name of the organization that I was working for at the time, but they imported a dog who was from Germany, untitled, 10, 11-month-old dog, but he'd never been indoors. He was always in a kennel. So the minute he hit the slick floor, he's up against the wall, walking sideways, and they washed him out. That's how I got the gig with the department that I was with, because I said, I can fix that. And then what the organization wanted to do was put the dog down. And they said it's junked out. Well, remember, the guy, I have to be very careful here. The client that bought the dog was a department. The organization sold him the dog, said, put it down and we'll sell you another one. But they weren't going to get him another one. So they're throwing out dogs and they're not proofing them. Do you understand what I mean? Yeah. So all we did with that dog environmentally was I said, you have keys to the school? And the chief said, yep. I said, summertime, let's go. I said, his food's in the middle of the gymnasium floor. Yep. We trimmed his nails. I put tacky pad on his feet so he could feel it. And then nobody was begging him. You want it? Go get it. Right. And that dog went #1 in the state in detection, like unbelievable. So that environmental, a lot of great detection dogs, a lot of great protection dogs, a lot of great police dogs get washed out because nobody wants to take the time to just fix one little environmental thing. So I think part of it is not knowing how to address environmental issues. Right. Well, I think, yeah. The other thing is, I think people have a hard time identifying when an environmental issue is a lack of exposure versus a genetic issue. Yep. So recovery obviously is really important to look at. And then again, I think it still comes back around to this, like, well, I don't want to have to use food. You're gonna feed the dog anyway. You might as well, don't miss a chance to use that horsepower to your advantage. Right. And so it's interesting because I find environmentally weak dogs, there's obviously a number of ways that you can fix them. Like, you know, what you're talking about is a dog that got over it, right? Well, can I just interrupt for 1 sec? Mm-hmm. The dog went into the building to do bite work and he hit the floor and he thinks he's on a sheet of ice. Yeah. And he's never had before. But he leaned against the wall and he kept going. He kept going. He didn't go, fuck this, I'm out. He kept going. So I said, if he wants to keep going, we can give him the tools. The want is there. We just got to teach him trust, and he's going to be okay. So the other thing that I see and that I've been successful with a couple, so I've had this work out very well with some pointers that environmentally were extremely soft. However, their drive for the hunt was so high. So all I taught them, like literally all I did was incidental everything. And I would take them out to places that I knew was going to pull out some of that environmental weakness. But those dogs learned that
anytime I'm nervous, if I just start searching, it will be fine. So when I take these dogs and I show them to clients and they are searching machines, to me, like, it is in a way covering up an environmental weakness, but that you teach the dog that how to get through it is to put up those blinders and just focus on your nose. And those dogs are successful.
Every dog has an environmental weakness. Every dog. And there's people who, like, we had a nighttime protection trial, and there was this badass dog that just kept crushing people. And I put the sleeve on, and I picked up, at the time my daughter was like 6 years old, and she had this Barbie tricycle. And I pressed the horn with the thing right here and went, "Hi, my name is Barbie." That dog about shit itself and took off. It's once you find it, that's the gift, because now you can work with it.
Right.
But just like the dog that was coming in with the floor sensitivity, if someone doesn't have someone like you, they can make it very much worse by getting frustrated. And they start to go, "You're gonna do the fucking work." And now the dog's like, you took something that was curable and you destroyed trust.
Well, and stress is cumulative. So you take that environmental stress, and now you add the stress of unclear handling, unclear training, and that's where I think.
And corrections. You're adding layers.
Yep. So, and that's the thing is, it's funny to me. Like, a lot of times I'm like, just like chill, like baby steps. And
we got it.
But the other side of the coin of that is that you then have people who get stuck in steps. So then they don't progress the dog. So if you put out one area too long, you're also going to make issues. It's that you have to be flexible in your training to where, like, you can get a dog out and be like, "This is what we're going to work on today." But then that dog shows you something different. You need to be flexible and say, like, "Okay, so that's what we're going to work on today." And so while you're looking for successive approximation, those baby steps that are going to make that dog successful, even in one session, you should be moving up those baby steps. The criteria should always be, rising. Then conversely, when you take that dog to a more difficult environment, whether it be a more difficult, like if you've got guns going off, like if you're challenging the dog environmentally or auditorially, tactile, like, so in a situation like that, then what you're looking for in the search itself should be a little bit easier, so that what you can focus on is the environmentals. The dog can find success. So I'll do a hide that is less difficult than what I've been showing the dog.
Yeah. Without giving it to him.
Right. So it's all about being able to change the variables and recognize that what you're working on is a couple of things at one time. When the dog is finished, you can do the whole picture. That's fine.
But
when I have a dog on the truck that has an issue that needs to be worked on, the real balance is being able to set up a problem that addresses the issue that maybe one or two dogs have, that all of the other dogs can still work this problem without it then causing issues for them. Does that make sense? So, like,
perfect
if I
sense.
have a couple dogs that, and this is like, I see this all the time, people are like terrified to make the first thing in a search hot. They're like, "It's going to make falsing issues." I'm like, then you work the dog through it. I don't understand.
That's right.
So you get dogs that skip. Like, I see it all the time. They go in to search a room and they just completely skip the first left wall and just boop, right across. So, like, because they're like, it's never productive. Why would I look over there?
Right.
Same thing if you're looking at any other vehicle, vehicles, boxes, luggage, open areas. Like, let's start with, like, okay, it's right here near me. Like, you have to, for you to search near me too. So if I have a couple dogs that really struggle with first hots, well, now I'm going to set up problems because I want that dog to pay attention from the very first presentation. Turn your brain on. That's what I need you to do. So when I set those problems up, I still need to do it in a way that it's not going to create issues for all the other dogs that don't have that particular problem.
That's right.
But it's just about being able to read the dogs and change your problems. And it's so easy to get stuck in a rut. Like, honestly,
well,
doing it. Go ahead.
You have to run into people that cannot read a dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's my thing. there are people who have done dog training and been very successful. Like I know a lot of people in ring sport that are very successful. They go through a lot of dogs, but they're very like to the highest levels of ring sport. Still can't read a dog. Still can't read a dog. Same thing in Schutzen. Same thing as if the dog doesn't fit their formula, they get rid of it. So you are blessed with the gift of being able to see the matrix.
So thank you. I think it's not just that.
No, I told you that a while ago. What did I say to you?
Yes, I recall when I shared this. When he was like 4 weeks old or something. Yeah.
I said, so, you got it. Stop worrying about it.
But I think you can to a certain extent teach people to read dogs.
Yeah.
So,
yes, absolutely. But to feel it, like you see the matrix, that's a rare gift.
It's experience too. I mean,
yeah, but it has to be, that gift has to be there. Stop being humble, girl. That has to be there.
Well, thank you. So I see you have questions written on your board behind you. Are those topics you want?
Well, no, I just have. So here we go. Ready? I wrote. So everything's written backwards because my camera's facing me.
Right.
What's up with that? Right. So source reward or handler reward? Well, you're doing explosive, so.
So it depends.
Yep.
One of the things that drives me craziest is when people are like, they feel like they have to keep the toy hidden from the dog all the time. You know, the people that'll like put it behind their back and they'll like walk backwards to you to hand it to. I'm like, can you just hand me the toy? Like, so I use both, honestly, but yeah. I also believe that dogs aren't stupid. They know we have the toy anyway. And I'm just going to go ahead and make it clear. Me holding the toy doesn't mean you get it.
That's right.
You perform the behavior and then you get the reward. So initially, I do like rewarding at or near source. Now, all this said, I use a yes marker to mark the behavior. I also use the verbal release. So then my end product, what I prefer, although it can be difficult to hand off to handlers. I'm not sure why this is very difficult for them. What I like in my personal dogs is a dog that will go find odor, that will maintain a good focus response, even while I take his reward and spin it next to his face or tease him with it or bounce it or start throwing a ball back and forth with somebody else. Like, to me, those are all challenges. Those are things I want the dog to work through. And then when I tell them, okay, or I use a click release for my personal dogs. When I do that, they then come to me. Once they reach me, here's your reward. And even then, I'll use variable rewards. It could be food, could be a Kong, could be a bite pillow, could be, whatever I feel like using that day or whatever you've earned at one reward session.
That's right.
So I think they both have their place. I think it depends on the dog. I think it depends on what you're working on. Now, obviously, a dog that is demonstrating aggression, I'm going to move away from reward at source pretty fast. Now, developing focus, I like to use, I really like BSDs. I think they're great for getting the focus there. That is the definition of rewarding at source. Protocol boxes are another way to do it. So I think it really depends. And I think it's good to even be able to use both and to move from one to the other rather easily. To me, the difference, I almost don't even, as long as you're marking the behavior, as long as the dog understands the target behavior, I don't think whether you do a source reward or a reward at a handler really matters all that much. Because
it was a trick. It was a trick question.
Okay.
Okay. Because what happens is, when I was talking to KD the other day, I don't know if you saw that interview. People say, I'm a clicker trainer. I'm an electric collar trainer. I'm this.
I did see that. And struggle is real.
So I wanted to see, are you, because there's some people, like the video I sent you, that guy does not have talent with the reward.
But still better than a lot of detection trainers.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But is even more frustrating.
So detection work is, to me, Eric Oakes disagree. No, if the handler knows what they're doing, it won't make a difference. It will not make a difference. So just like I say about personal protection and obedience, there's levels to the game. And if
Yep.
you watch like the Randy Hare stuff, they drop buckets of tennis balls on these dogs, and the dog's like, nope, it's the odor, dude, not the reward. And
Yeah.
it's really cool. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm telling you, that changed everything for me. I was like what, this is witchcraft.
Yep.
And then I was like, it actually took me a while to process it. Like, I'm like, no, dude, no, I'm so brainwashed, you have to stop this. And I was like, holy shit, right? So I have to ask you this before I forget it, and then I want to come back to the other stuff, okay?
Okay.
And you may not want to deal with it, but I want to see if you'll deal with it.
Okay.
Have you ever been disrespected because you have indoor plumbing versus outdoor plumbing as a trainer?
I don't know that I would say disrespected. I think that it can be more difficult to be a female in this industry. And actually, I think more often than disrespect, I have to like get over, like when I start working with somebody new or I move to a new company, it's an intimidation factor that I have to get over. Like there's a lot of like, there just seems to be a different response. I think it's not only that I'm a woman, but I think it's also that I've never been in the military or worked as a police officer.
So who's intimidated? You're intimidating them, or they're intimidating you?
Oh no, I don't get intimidated.
Yeah.
Like I'm just not that threatened by anybody else. Because we can all train dogs. It's fine.
Yeah.
It tends to be that they're intimidated by me. So that's something that I'm still learning how to deal with, to be honest. And sometimes there's conflict about it, but I mean, I'd rather have the conflict and have the conversation than not have the conversation. I do know that there are women in the industry that sexual harassment's real. Yeah. So.
Well, remember I told you when you were thinking to come up, I said, we are wildly inappropriate.
Right. So I don't mind like inappropriate jokes. I don't give it like none of that. I don't care. Don't send me a dick pic.
No, I don't.
Like,
you need a small lens for mine anyway. So
what?
For
me, there's lines, and it was honestly when I was working with the Marines years ago. So my handler, most of them had never even deployed before. They're young kids, you know. My rule with them, because you know they're all around each other all the time. I don't give a shit what y'all talk about. I don't give a shit what jokes you tell about women. I keep my name out your mouth. That's the only line. That's the only line that you can. Otherwise, I really don't care. And sometimes, even take part in it. You know.
Yeah. I got a lady came in and her dog was way out of control, little Chihuahua mix. Dylan was in the room with me. It was one of his first days that he was ever working with me. And I'll never forget this lady. Oh my God. I laughed so hard. She said, I said, well, your dog's out of control and you need to teach it. You know, basically in a nutshell, you need to get your dog under control. So I got up to walk into the training room and she turns to my wife and says, how can a fat guy who can't control his own food teach my dog control? And I was like, so I came back in the room and she was like, and I'm like, I heard what you said and you're right. But my dog's not killing people. So you learn to get like this thick skin, right? And we do get, especially being a former comedian. Like I know one of my mentors is Cheryl Carlson, and I've seen people, she's brilliant, and I've seen people disrespect her because she's female. That's it. And it pissed me off. And she's like, watch, I'll handle it. And she does. Every fucking time she handles it. It's a shame it's there. But I just see with women typically that they don't often get the respect that a guy would get right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see where that's true. The good thing though is, I mean, all I got to do is put out quality dogs. Like
that's right.
I really, I used to get really caught up in all of the drama and bullshit about dogs, and it became really toxic for a period there. That's why I disappeared from bite sports for a while. So I try really, really hard to just focus on my dogs. I know that I put out good dogs, and I put out better dogs than a lot of people. So
look at that smile. Look at that smile. I love it.
Like, I'm not concerned about people questioning my ability. I think that you should have to prove yourself. And I mean, so I just switched companies recently. I came from a company where I was very respected. I led most of the imprintation and getting the dogs ready for cert. And I also dealt with a lot of problem dogs. So I fixed a lot of dogs that they were considering washing out. I assisted handlers, both here and overseas, when they had real issues with their dogs. So I came from a place where, like, it was kind of like, all right, you can go do what Alison's gonna do. Like, we trust you. And I came to a new company, and it was initially really frustrating because I came in, I guess I didn't realize that it was gonna happen, but I was like, man, I'm like back to zero now. And it really bothered me for the first couple of weeks, because I was getting frustrated that I didn't get that respect that I felt I should be. And then, you know, like I just said, I thought about it, and I was like, it's not even a big deal. Like, I'll put out my first truck of dogs and it'll be fine. So I think part of it is just as you get older and you become more confident in your skills and the quality of dogs that you're putting out, a lot of that stuff just doesn't matter anymore. It's not a competition. I mean, well,
it's not a competition to you, but it is to a lot of people that are insecure about what they're doing.
Right.
Right.
And that's true.
And so what you found out is the same thing about odor in detection work, is that is the only constant. And whatever plumbing you have, whatever you look like, if you look like Shrek or whatever, can you get the fucking job done? And can you do it well? And that's the greatest thing in the world that people don't understand, is that the dogs are constantly teaching us what we need to learn as human beings. And it seems like you've got that down. You've got that all locked in. Don't take it personal. We're just gonna get through everything. And I think that's something that the real teachers in the dog world come to. And the ones that don't still yell at people, still get pissed off, still get really frustrated. And it's just,
that's one thing I learned from Bart really well. He is easily one of, if not the most humble person I've ever dealt with dogs. And when I first started studying with him, what I noticed is that when everyone would go out to eat after, you know, a day at the seminar or whatever, everyone else is talking dogs. Bart just listened. He doesn't drop information without being asked, because he's learned that, like, if they want my input, they'll ask, you know, and he carries himself in a way that I really respect. I mean, and learning from him, watching the way he carries himself and how he holds himself around other people, because he will absolutely spend time with you. Like, he's an amazing teacher. I learned a lot about what I wanted to be when I was training with Bart. He really, because it was more than just the dogs. It was just, because I've had a lot of teachers over the years, and you know, I appreciate everybody who stepped into my life and taught me. Some of those teachers, we had really rough relationships because they do tend to be egomaniacal, very loud. They can treat students a little bit like whipping boys sometimes, and that's not really an approach that I respond super well to.
Really?
Yeah. So unfortunately, there are some people that I've learned a lot from that I no longer speak to because of how,
Well,
like,
because
how they carry themselves and how they treat people.
right,
I have a
that's
problem.
right. Right. And I was bad. I was the worst. I was horrible. And really, Cheryl was the one that held a mirror up to me and goes, "You're a fucking asshole." Like, and I'm like, "What? Like, what?" And then I just started listening and watch. I mean, she, I think she was just walking away from me being like, "Shut the fuck up," for like 5 years. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Because I'm male and I don't get it. But once you learn to shut the fuck up and listen, but the problem is I see so many guys who have this, I'm going to make my fucking point and you're going to see I know what I'm doing. And it's like, look, calm down. Like just calm down. And there are people who will never ever, I know a female dog trainer who's so bitter at people because she knows what she's doing, but she cannot get people to understand it. And she's so bitter as a human being, like bitter as a human being. And that's part of something we have to go through. What you just said was that you got to the point where you had to fix it. You had to, it's not about them, it's about you.
Mm-hmm.
You have to go, this isn't about me. It's about them. And it's not, and then that's fixing you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
the only thing you control is how you respond to the variables presented to you.
The best way to modify someone else's behavior is to modify your own.
Yep. So, I mean, just focus on the dogs. That's the secret, I think. Just focus on the dogs.
Yeah.
You put out, good dogs, good things come back to you.
Are you are you uh are you of the mindset that a mentor should be 100% positive to you? And I don't mean like eviscerating you and screaming at you, because I had a mentor from the Czech Republic that was fucking brutal. Like, I went over and I said, "Oh," and I won't say his name because he doesn't want me to say his name, and we don't talk anymore. I said, "This is my girlfriend," at the time, was my wife now. And he looked at my face and goes, "Tell your girlfriend I said hello." She's right fucking there. But like that kind of arrogant, like that kind of like, I don't have time for anybody. And then would call me, "You're a fucking retard," all the time. And so there's a line, right? Where you've got to, I don't know, my mentors, when I was right, they were quiet.
Yep.
That's it.
And that's kind of, I can take somebody yelling at me. I don't mind that. Especially, and I find this is true of handlers too. I very frequently have to yell at people, like, to stop reaching for their toy. And I have to yell multiple times.
Yell to them, not at them.
Habit. Yeah. You're trying to break habit. But I don't think you should yell all of the time. I don't really get hurt feelings. I think that a mentor, a coworker, a friend in this game, when they see you working dogs, when there's something you're doing that's wrong, speak up. It's the people that don't speak up. They're not doing you any favors. I would rather have somebody tell me, "God, you're a fucking idiot. Why the hell did you do this?" than not tell me something. And yeah, I don't think a mentor has to be 100% positive, the same way I don't think a dog trainer has to be 100% positive. And I think that there's a time and a place for hard corrections, but as soon as it occurs, it's over, dogs have taught me two huge things: patience and to be unemotional about things.
Well, right. There's no emotion in dog training. There's not. It's not, people that are angry, you can't train. You're thinking about yourself. And people that are too hyper emotional, they're like the thing you said in the beginning where like there's always starvation. There's people that are going to go, "Oh, what does she mean?" And you're like, "Shut up and listen." Okay? Shut the fuck up and listen. Now, so here's my other thing. Do you find so what are you, 11 years in?
Yeah, professionally, yeah.
Okay.
I did it as a hobby for a long time.
Experience is experience.
I played around in a little bit of IPO and French ring, and prior to that, like I wasn't allowed to have dogs. So I would walk
Uh-oh.
to animal control to walk their dogs.
Yeah.
Really how I got started.
You're a junkie.
Bunch of pit bulls at animal control.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So here's my question for you. Do you find in the age of Facebook that everybody is supporting everybody and saying, there's the big flex arm, 100%. There's, fist bump. Yeah, you're doing it. Hearts. You're awesome. And you're going, what the fuck are you doing? But because people don't like the criticism, are we lowering the bar? Is the bar going up or is it going down?
I think that despite what people put on, like, despite people who like posts or whatever, people talk shit behind your back.
Absolutely.
Like I think there's still a lot of criticism. It's just people don't have the balls to say things to people's face.
I do.
Now, yeah. So I do think that dog training has changed, particularly when it comes to bite work. And I tell people all the time, like, there's a lot of imitators out there.
Yep.
And it's a conversation that I've had with a few of my puppy owners where I know who they're training with, and I will make a phone call like, yo, I need you to go check out this guy instead. This is the original. Go check him out, and then call me back. Let me know what you think. I think there's a lot of, nobody wants to watch a dog track. Nobody wants to watch, a dog search a blank building. Like, nobody, they want to see that.
I do.
That action in bite work. And I feel like the emphasis is put on the wrong things now.
Yep.
And like, I mean, I stepped away from bite work for several years, and I just got back into it. And I feel very lucky to honestly be like right down the road from a really good club. I got to give Andrew Sterner props here.
Shout out.
Just another sport dog. The teamwork of the club, like everybody supports one another, but they also like, hey, your dog is crabbing. Like, or we'll have these conversations. And it's not about, let's see what the dog can take today. It's, okay, this is our training plan. These are our goals. This is how we're going to get there. It's a relief, really, to see that. And it's nice to be around a group of people where it's not constant competition with everybody in the whole world. It's not taking a bunch of videos for Facebook. It's not like, it's real training, and real training is kind of boring to watch. Like, if you don't know what you're looking at, then it can be boring.
Well, I do the same thing with decoys. Is I'm not putting you right in the suit. There's no way. Let's work a rag. Let's work on your footwork. Let's do this. And so a lot of guys will go to a club, they fit the suit, and they start taking bites. And that to me is the beginning of the end. I have like so many questions for you. It's unbelievable. I could actually do this for days. So when you're teaching explosives, obviously it's a passive alert, yeah?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So there's years and years ago, I read a book from a guy in Canada who said you can cross-train narcotics and explosives.
I disagree.
Yeah, I read the whole book.
And even beyond.
What did you just say?
So beyond, like, even just completely separate from whether or not you can train it, you're going to have
Why would you?
Who's going to misread an indication, and somebody's going to walk up a bomb. That's what's going to happen.
Yep.
To me, that's irresponsible.
Yep. I agree. But and that's what I see too in the protection dog world is everybody's. So I just got sent these pictures from a police dog trainer. And I'm not going to say who the pictures came from, whatever, but they're using fire. Like they have a blowtorch pointed at the dog while the dog's on the bite. They have a torch and they're doing this. When the fuck would you deploy your dog on a guy with a flamethrower or a torch?
Do the dogs not get injured? Like,
I don't know. They're pictures. So my thing is that Facebook and YouTube are making people try to outdo each other.
Yep.
And it's just this, it's jackass dog training. Hi, my name's Chris. Welcome to Jackass. I'm going to light my dog on fire and send it on a bite. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
So,
yeah.
I wanted to tell you about something that maybe you can help me with. So, this big thing now where you can, it's been around for a while, but you can use dogs to track wounded game.
Yeah.
So I started to do it, and then I just stopped because, number one, you can't charge anybody for it. Not up here in Maine anyway. And then there were these guys dragging a deer pelt and having the dog follow it. And I'm like, you're dumb. And they're like, why? I said, because the dog's going to go follow live deer. And they're like, no, it's a wounded deer. I said, well, the wounded is, you got some stomach bile, you got some blood, and then I started to do trails with that. But then I found out if you freeze the blood, like say during hunting season, I'm collecting it, it changes. It's completely different.
Changes the chemical composition, yes.
And I had no idea. So these dogs are finding frozen blood like crazy, but when I put them on an actual scent, they were like, what are you talking about? There's nothing here.
Yeah. So, yeah, that would be difficult outside of hunting season. I don't really, it doesn't surprise me that freezing the blood created that problem.
It did.
I wonder the same thing, honestly, about diabetic alert dogs and freezing saliva, because I'm very, my niche is definitely explosives, like so I don't do a lot of detection outside of that. But I even know from dealing with explosives that temperature changes are going to change the composition of the explosives I'm using. Even beyond that, if you start playing with HME, which homemade explosives, and your carrier systems, there's some HME that will react with the carrier system, which then changes the chemical composition of the HME. So like if you, and I'm not EOD, like I don't know everything about explosives. I'm still learning. I'm still learning about dogs. I hope I'm always learning about dogs.
You will be.
So I know that temperature and even how we contain those things can change the way they smell. Reason that like I'm anal about my explosives and the containment systems. Like,
well, listen, if you're fucking around with narcotics, okay, maybe you miss a find. If you're fucking around with explosives and you're not religious about it, someone or something is probably going to die.
Well, yeah, and that's unfortunately, I've seen this the entire time I've been in the industry. I think a lot of people don't carry the weight of the responsibility of training bomb detection dogs. It's not training a dog to find weed at an interdiction stop, which like
that's right.
It's I mean, people will die, and I think that for me, I take it very seriously when I give somebody a dog and I say like, all right, this dog will alert on explosives. Yep. You can trust that. I think that's, you got to be really, really confident that dog knows what it's doing. So, and that's a problem that I have in this industry. I see it a lot and it frustrates me because it is a very serious thing. And maybe I'm more sensitive to it because of where I started. So when I started training as a contractor for the Marine Corps, you know, most of the guys I was dealing with were between 18 and 20 years old. I had a little brother who had died a few years earlier. So for me, like, it was very poignant that every single handler I trained, he had a mother, a father, he had like that, like, I knew what that was going to do to people if he didn't come home. And I took that, I take that very seriously. And I actually had a dog that we deployed to Afghanistan where the dog died. I had multiple dogs die, but this dog actually died because when he went to alert, he actually hit the pressure plate and, you know, it's blown up. And other trainers were like so upset about the dog. And I was like, yeah, it's sad the dog died, but
the guy comes home.
All these guys were like not far away. Like they all get to come home. And to me, there's a value and a dignity and a respect that comes with
right.
death for an animal or another human being. It's kind of the same way I felt living on my dad's farm and raising animals and then slaughtering them and eating them. Like it, there's a level of like dignity and respect in that that I don't think a lot of people understand.
Listen to me. I can't tell you how much that honesty means, and that real personal moment that you just shared. People who are just doing this shit to be popular or whatever, they never really know. My respect for you just deepened so much, because that's that real shit that I want to sit down. Like I'll tell you, I don't know if you ever met Amir, but when I sat down with Amir, like I forget to eat. I forget to eat. And I'm just like, oh my God, I could watch this guy read the fucking phone book. You know what I mean? Like there's real passion, and you can tell the people who have been through some shit and really take that and let the dogs kind of help you cathartically get through it and really put some value on a tragic thing. And I can't tell you, that's like, I'm sitting here going like, oh, it's awesome. Like I'm being a huge pussy inside. Like you don't even know. But that's to me is like, how many people do you talk to in the dog world that actually will tell you a story as deep as that and connect it to the dogs without keeping it in trauma or getting pissed off? Do you see what I mean? Like, my dog died, I can never have another dog, blah, blah, blah. Or someone ran over my dog, no one should have a car. And now you know what I mean? Like you take it now and you do something good with that. There's so much good in there. There's so much realism in there. There's so much of you in there. And so people who don't hear you say that would never know that every day when you go to work, that part of you is working that dog. That's amazing shit. That's amazing. That's why I told you. Remember what I told you? I told you. I never met you, but I told you. There's people who are unicorns, and you're one of the fucking unicorns. You are absolutely one of the fucking unicorns. And well, you don't have to thank you, because that's what gives me hope that this shit isn't going to die, because too many people are looking for the stunt bites or faking their resume. I was 5 years old when I started working dogs, or, you know, all this fucking hype. And then if they just shut the fuck up and listened to people and their story, and they saw the results, oh my God.
There's definitely, I see people all the time that are out there that want to learn, that put in the work. The last company I worked for, there was a kennel tech who really wanted to be into dogs. He came in every single day that he was not working, and he studied with me. He came in and he worked 8-hour days, not getting paid, just because he wanted to learn. And,
that's right.
You know, like I'm all about paying your dues. You know, I had to pay my dues. So I worked him hard. And when an assistant trainer position opened up, I went to fucking bat. And I was like, he has the heart, he has the want. And, you know, he got the promotion, and I think he shows a lot of promise. He wants to learn. He goes home and does detection with his own dog. Mm-hmm. He's got the raw materials. Mm-hmm. So I'm always bait him to my new company. I'm like, come with me. You mean you're a mentor? Yeah.
Yeah, you're getting old, girl. That's the thing.
But I think there are there's a lot of people that want to learn dogs. They just need the right teacher. And that's one thing I feel like I hear people that are instructors talk about how they hate dealing with students that maybe have a hard time grasping concepts. And I'm like, then you don't really like teaching, do you? Why are you an instructor? And maybe, I mean, I went to school to be a college professor, so that's probably got something to do with it.
But it also is who you're working with, because I'm telling you, when you get, so we got a lady whose dog ripped the calf muscle off the UPS guy, ripped it off.
Yep.
And I said, the first thing you should do is put the dog down. And that's like, that's no, that's not on the table. So you gotta fix it. I'm like, no, I don't fix it. I teach you where you went wrong. I teach you what caused it. And then we're going to teach you how to manage it when you have to and eliminate it where we can. And it was, yeah, I can't come to class today. I can't do this. I can't do that. And you're like, do you understand someone lost part of their body?
Right.
And your dog's going to die. And she's like, you're a fucking asshole. And I'm like, okay, I mean, what can I do?
Yeah, see, at that point, honestly, I would probably bow out. Because I would.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying, is that in the pet industry, the pet owners go on YouTube and go, I saw Zach George said that we need a pet box with good toys in it and buy my new book. And you're like, no, dude, no, forget it. Well, I watched Caesar Milan, the complete box set, season 3. And you're like, no.
I'll be honest with you. When I first started messing with dogs was when like Caesar was real big. Definitely watched his show, read his books, but because I was just a kid. Like I had no guidance anywhere. So I was like, well, yes. So I tried some of the stuff, and then I still remember I saw a picture of an American Bulldog doing the attention healing for IPO.
Yeah, buddy.
It was just so beautiful to me that that research kicked in, and and honestly, at the beginning, I did do a lot of learning off talking to people on forums and YouTubing stuff, and just trying with this little freaking rescue pit bull I had. It wasn't until I moved somewhere where there was training available. That's another thing is if you really want to be a dog trainer, or you're really passionate about it, is that you will move. And I've done it multiple times. I moved from Florida to North Carolina. I'm at this point I move almost once a year. Yeah. And it's I'm very singly focused. Yeah. On much just dogs. So I don't think that, it's hard for me to be well, Facebook and YouTube are the devil, and nobody. No,
that's not what I mean. This is good, and this is Facebook.
Yeah, so to me, it's like anything else. There's productive and non-productive uses. It's like books, Yeah.
It's like correction collars. It's like food. Yeah,
so but what happens is that people who don't know what they don't know, but also just don't know anything when they're starting, you can't pick out the good from the bad because you don't know how to tell the difference.
Oh, well, the minute you say, so my favorite response to criticism is why. Okay. So we just did this seminar down in Virginia, and there was a couple of people there who were like, you need to show me. And I'm like, nope. Tell me why this would, nope. You've been doing this not long. You got your car all lettered up. Your license plate says obedience God. You're coming in here and you don't know dick, but you're acting like you do know something. And the people who know what they're doing are just looking at the emperor's new clothes. They're going, you're out of your fucking mind. But then the guys from Misfit Canine, who are a really tight group of people, super open, show me, tell me, let's go, let's get through this, and questions why is this happening? I don't understand this. I have no problem with that. That's teaching.
Yep.
What I have a problem with is when you go to a seminar or you go on someone's page and you say, if you criticize me, you're hating me. You're in the wrong fucking business. You're in the wrong fucking, because all this business is criticism.
Well, I'll be honest with you, the people that I respect the most, and I actually is somebody that I've talked to and follow her on Facebook. I think she's a fantastic trainer, and I really respect her for how she carries herself. Adrian Isabel out west. She's a fantastic trainer, but she's also very open about what she doesn't know. Like she questions, she's like, "Hey, like, can somebody help me with this?" Like, I just really, really respect that. You know,
of course,
way to know everything, and it to me, like, I tell people I work with and handlers all the time, like, the day that I come into work and I think I know everything, and I think that I can't learn from anybody else, it's also the day that I should get out of dogs.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you this, if you said to me, hey, Chris, I'm tired of this. I don't want to work for companies anymore. I need a place where I can start my own company. Can I do it at your building? I'll be like, yeah, fuck, go ahead. Just give me something. And then I would go like,
that.
What?
Hold you to that.
Would I do that?
I'm holding you to that.
You're fucking right, I will. Look, man, this is how I am. And I'd say, okay, do your thing. Just give me a certain amount, for rent or whatever. And I would be like, just do your thing. And then I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch you fucking work. And I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to write it down in my little training log. And I'm going to go back. And then I'm going to pick up a dog and go, can you just watch me? And then just let me do this, let me do that. And you're going to do the same thing with me and my strengths.
And then we would never eat or go home.
Well, I can dig that. I need to not eat. So yeah, but that's what life is about, right? But unfortunately, money and ego and all these things come in. And when I get, like, honest to God, when I used to go out to Cheryl's place to Michigan, I didn't want to go home. I remember my son was 10 months old. And my wife's like, where are you going? I go, oh, I'm going to Michigan. She's like, you have a newborn son. I'm like, the motherfucker don't know me. No. I'll be back when he's like 5. You know what I mean? Like, it's just myopic. It's just in you to do that. And it is disheartening when you get into the pet trade and that's all you do. I told Amir, I hate my job. And he's like, why? And I said, come and hang out and you will see the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, so I respect people who can do the pet thing. I tried it for about 2 years and then I was like, no.
Did you choke anybody?
No, I did not.
Oh, good. Then you did okay.
I was like, nope, got to get back to detection. And, so the industry is hard. So what other detection questions did you have for me?
Well, the other thing that I was working on, I wanted to ask you was about pseudo. And I think I already got the answer, but do you have a hard time, if at all, when you have pseudo, do you have a hard time getting to the real stuff?
So I only train on real explosives.
Yeah.
It's easy because I work for these security companies. So now, like, if I had my own business, it would be getting your ATF stuff is a lot of work. It's expensive. Like, it's hard. Yep. I have used Nest. I used to use it specifically to teach HMX and RDX because I actually found that if I taught them on Nest and then came back over to real explosives, those dogs consistently hit those explosives more easily than dogs that did not see Nest. I have used ScentLogix. If I go out in public, obviously I don't take real explosives with me. So I'll use
good idea.
I will use ScentLogix narcotics. I've not had a hard time going back and forth between ScentLogix and the real. All that said, the reason I use ScentLogix is because this was years ago now, so I may be recalling incorrectly, but I believe it was the University of Auburn that did a study on a couple different pseudos, and it's been so I can't remember exactly the reasoning why anymore, but SemLogix in their studies was like they concluded that that was the best training aid if you were going to be using pseudos. So if possible, always train on the real stuff.
Yep.
However, with narcotics, what you got to consider is that what you're pulling off the street, heroin, ecstasy, cocaine, like they can be cut, like, you know, so you're going to run into some chemical issues if you're only using what's being, you know, picked up through interdiction or whatever. So I think it's actually important for narcotics dogs to see the pure in the form of SemLogix at some point.
Yeah. So when people say they want to come in and give their dog a job and they want to do some scent work, I don't mess with the drugs, clearly the explosives or the pseudo. What I do is I do coffee and curry. So I pick up it's just a scent. It's just a strong scent.
It doesn't matter what scent you use. It's just giving the handler and the dog an activity.
Right.
I really love that canine Nosework sport thing. I think that's great. And it's what, like clove oil, birch oil, and anise.
Yeah, it's just a scent. Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's great when pet people want to do that kind of stuff. I mean, so. Yeah.
Well, I love the dogs that come in and they're trying to kill me and they're like, I want to do scent work. And I'm like, no, we got shit to do before that. So when do you think you'll actually get to the point where you're going to break away from the companies and start your own company?
I don't think it's that far away anymore.
Yeah, I don't either.
I'm not real social media or anything. I don't. And I've been a little surprised here in the last year. I've actually had several people contact me and organizations asking me to come do detection seminars and handler seminars. And it's hard because, right, like when I'm working for a company, I sign a lot of contracts. So I have to be really careful about what I do while I'm currently employed by said company because I can get in trouble. But it's something I'm thinking about, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to make that leap. I think that getting involved in pet obedience, again, is going to be a necessary part of that, just for income. I would love to, I mean, my end goal, honestly, is to basically train trainers for detection work, to put on seminars, and I just don't, I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to make that leap. That's something I need to do a lot of thinking about and some planning. So successful business owners, if you want to give me some advice, I'm totally open.
Well, I think for me, it's not good because I'm making my living in a niche that nobody else will take. I literally make my living 7 days a week with the dogs that are last chance. It's either me or death. And that is, it puts you in such a place because it's heartbreaking. I mean, you can fix this dog, but the people are like, you know, we'll just put it down and get another one. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of, that's why Dylan looks like he looks. Like, I mean, he's just completely that kid hates humanity. Like, he's the kind of guy that's going to be in a tower with a high-powered rifle. That's the kind of guy he is. Dogs, he loves them, you know. Yeah. But it's a very difficult thing. I think I think you have a really, really bright future. I really do. I'd never spoken to you. But I could see from your posts, a little bit of Facebook stalking, that you know what you're doing and you're awesome at it. So thumbs up if you think Alison's pretty awesome at what she does and pretty awesome as a person, because she's a badass in my book. She gets the unicorn status for sure. And I'd love to have you come up sometime and do maybe a little seminar on detection or something and show people. Stay in touch. So can you give a shout out to, I know you work for a company, but is there a club that you want to give a shout out to, or any information that you want to get across?
There's actually several people. So like I said, Andrew Sterner, just another sport dog club. Thanks for being one of the good ones, man. And then honestly, I want to give a shout out to several of the people that I've learned from over the years that have touched me as a trainer. Tracy Spilsbury, Anna Giannotto, Jerry Bradshaw, Bart Vallon, Justin Rigney, Dick Stahl, Frankie Cowan, Rick.
Oh,
Rudd.
Frankie, I know Frankie.
Yeah, so I've learned from a lot of people over the years, and I took something away from every one of them, and I would not be where I am today or who I am today without those people. A couple of retriever trainers that, you know, I've worked for or with in the past, Curtis King, Grayson Geyer. Yeah, those are some of the people that really touched me.
That's good. That's really cool. And I can see that it's a lifestyle with you. It's a passion with you. You know, I have an enormous amount of respect, and I don't say that to a lot of people. So I thank you so much for coming on, and I would really like to, in a couple months, have you on again.
Okay.
Maybe we can get together, video some of me just tripping on my dick while I'm trying to keep up with you, and then we'll put that video out and then come back on and talk about it. Would you be open to something like that?
Yeah. I think we can do something like that. I think we can definitely arrange for me to come up to Maine at some point. Or if you're going to be, I'm in North Carolina, but if you're going to be like North Carolina, Virginia area during another one of your seminars, you know, like meet up there and do some like night detection.
Ooh, stop now. You'd get me crazy. I thank you again for coming on, and I hope that you have the greatest success. I really do. The dog world needs more like you, and I appreciate it.
Thanks. Well, it's been good talking to you.
And if you could calm down, that would be really fucking great.
You're right. I should.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Bye, Chris.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everybody, for watching. That was one of my favorites. She is awesome.